So again, I'm Kathy Kuntz with Cool Choices. I'm delighted you could join me today to talk about behavior as the missing link in your sustainability efforts. We're doing a quick poll as people log in to get a sense of how much time your team spends on employee engagement right now. And it looks like most of the folks on the line have participated in the poll. Pause 1 second and see if we get a couple more. I'm going to close that and quickly share the poll results. So it looks like was maybe a little less than half of the folks on the phone spend less than 10%, and the other half are split between 10 to 25% and more than 25%. So it's exciting to see that some folks are spending so much time on engagement, knowing how resource constrained folks can be in terms of their efforts. So I'm going to hide the poll so that everyone sees my screen, and then I'll get started. So as I said, I'm Kathy Kuntz with Cool Choices. I'm delighted you could join me today to talk about behavior change as a missing link in some sustainability plans. It seems like we might have some folks on the call who have terrific things to share that are already making important investments in behavior. As a bit of background, Cool Choices is a nonprofit, and our aim is to inspire individuals, businesses, and whole communities to adopt practices that reduce greenhouse gases. So we kind of live in this behavior change space. And one of the ways we inspire change is through an online program we've evolved. And this is a program where we partner with businesses or communities, customize a set of actions in an online deck, and we roll out what's essentially for participants a game. People sign up, and over the course of 6 weeks, they get points for the sustainable things they do at work and at home. And it's really an opportunity to do a couple of things. First, by having a transparent game environment, people can see that other people are taking action too, and that those actions add up across the community. So there's an important sense of empowerment and efficacy that comes out of the model. The other really important thing is it gets people talking about sustainability because they're coaching each other, they're collaborating to get points for their team. And all of that, again, reinforces that there's a shared value system here that's really important, and we'll circle back to that in the way that ties into culture. But so that just gives you a little bit of a sense of what we do. Certainly, as we talk to sustainability folks, and I've been privileged to be doing this work here at Cool Choices for almost 8 years now, and before that doing more traditional energy efficiency work. So I've interacted with sustainability leads in lots of organizations, and I'm acutely aware of all of the pressures on a sustainability lead's time, and that pragmatically the bulk of the effort is around identifying opportunities for big wins, for opportunities to dramatically reduce waste, to reduce energy use, water use, carbon emissions. There's also this kind of growing demand around reporting. And really the point we want to make today is that in the course of doing those things, it's really important as the sustainability advocate that you also think about human opportunities, those behavioral opportunities. And really, there are two driving reasons for you to pay attention to the people in your organization as well as the systems, the building controls and renewable energy systems and all the other ways you're reducing emissions. The first reason to pay attention to humans is a very kind of pragmatic one, and that's that as you are increasingly successful with your sustainability goals, the roles humans play become bigger and bigger. And a good example of that is energy use in high performance buildings. So by high performance buildings, we mean office buildings typically that have a really efficient shell, that have automated high efficiency lighting and HVAC systems. And so the kind of basics of the building are using very little energy compared to traditional buildings. In those buildings, more than half of the remaining energy use is plug load, is what individuals are doing in their offices or their cubicles largely. And so it's a really good example of how, as you become more successful with the mechanical and technological pieces, the human pieces become more important because they're what's left. We've certainly interacted with organizations where this is true around waste as well. So as organizations are on a quest for zero landfill, there are often big wins that might come out of their manufacturing efforts up front. And then there's a moment where the best opportunities are the waste from the employee lunchroom, and that's about engaging people. So pragmatically, if human behavior isn't on your radar yet, it's very likely that it will become on your radar, is sort of the first piece of this. The second reason, though, to pay attention to human behavior is kind of a broader strategic reason. And here I always like to turn to this quote from Peter Drucker, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Probably you all can think of examples of this, of being in organizations where there was some new strategic initiative announced that did not fit with the existing culture and really died on the vine. And I think a really important thing for you to think about as you're leading sustainability efforts is, have you done what you can to make sustainability part of the culture, or is it just a strategy among various strategies in an organization? Let me give you a really concrete example of this. I think of a sustainability manager we worked with years ago who talked about how in the first year in his position, as he met with various departments to talk about, we want to start a zero waste initiative, we want to reduce operating costs here. People were really polite, but largely not helpful. They would kind of smile and nod and go, oh, that's really interesting that that's what you're doing. And he finally pushed someone about, your facilities, we need you involved in this. And the person he was talking to said, these initiatives come along all the time here. You'll be gone in 6 months. I'll be doing what I'm doing. This isn't this, you're a flavor of the month. This isn't something that I'm going to invest time in unless I know it's real. And so it became really clear to him that the organization had to think about how to make sustainability part of their culture so that everyone thought, yeah, this is a permanent thing. This is real. This is part of who we are going forward. This is in our DNA. Another maybe way to think about that, I always like this quote from Morgan at Menasha Corporation, talking about some of the impacts he saw after working with us. And in his words, it's an entire employee population moving in the same direction. Everyone understanding the goals around sustainability and being bought into those goals and being interested in how their role fits in those goals. So that's the kind of culture quest. When you have a culture where sustainability is baked into that culture, which means, culture, you can think that's how people think, act, and interact in the most simplest way. So when everyone is getting signals that this is part of who we are, things become much more possible to do. Now, getting there can be a challenge. And part of the challenge in getting there is that from where you sit, you see all of the big energy and waste and water uses in the organization, and you're prioritizing ways to reduce waste in a very strategic way. Rank and file staff, though, are on the ground in the organization and see some angle at it and might not see how things are moving forward. So part of what you need to think about when you're thinking about engaging around behavior and being strategic is really thinking about, well, how does this look from the bottom up? And there are always these examples of, so if I'm in an organization that's saying, we're committed to being zero energy, we're doing all of these things, but I look around my workspace and there are folks who are off at meetings who've left multiple monitors on, it's kind of hard to believe that we care about this stuff. Is this just some group of greenies who cares about this stuff, or do we all care about this stuff? Similar kinds of examples with fleet things. Outside your warehouse, are there multiple vehicles running all the time? Or worse, are your vehicles running outside your customer facilities, telling them that you've nary a care in the world, you've got plenty of gas to burn all day long? Which is why behavior is really important. And examples of how, from the employee perspective, it can seem like you're not paying attention to what you should pay attention to. Here, I want to just mention we did a white paper last year on this where we culled through the suggestions we got from more than a dozen programs to kind of help sustainability leads get insights into where employees see those anomalies. Because I think it's not always intuitive to the experts where employees see proof that the sustainability objectives aren't real, that they aren't really part of the culture. My maybe best example is a manufacturing facility that's done terrific things to reduce water consumption in its manufacturing processes. But employees are obsessed with the fact that one of the sinks in the bathroom is dripping, and it has been dripping for months. For them, that's evidence that we don't really care about water here, even though the water consumption there is much smaller than what it was in the manufacturing. But what people can see matters, and that's a piece of what you really need to think about in this process, is how do you make sure people see what you want them to see? Again, because you're aiming at this culture. You're aiming at a universe where everybody essentially is pulling for the sustainability goals, where everybody is excited about what you're accomplishing on the sustainability front, where you've got sustainability baked into your culture as a permanent set of your values. And when you think about that, I think there are a variety of ways to engage folks. Obviously, we have expertise there, and we'd love to talk to you about how our program might help you. Today, though, I want to focus on two really simple things you can do in terms of engagement that you could do right now after this call around one issue or another and build momentum in your organization. And the first of those is to make it easy for people to do the right things inside your organization. And this is really important, and it's really easy for us not to pay enough attention to this. I feel like I talk to a lot of sustainability folks who are frustrated that employees aren't doing more to help out. And we'll have a conversation where they'll say, they're not willing to walk 20 extra feet to go to the recycling bin, to which my response is always, why do they have to go an extra distance to recycle? Why don't you have the recycling right next to the other bin? Why do employees have to figure out on their own whether they should turn their monitors off when they go to meetings? Why don't you make that simpler for them to know what the right process is? How can you make it easier for people to do the right thing so that when people look around, they see more people doing the right thing? I mean, ultimately, part of what's important to understand about behavior and how behavior feeds culture is that very often we adopt behaviors and then we change our beliefs to be consistent with those behaviors. So as I increasingly recycle, I become more supportive of recycling policies. And that's the opportunity you have. Can you make it easy for people to do the right thing so that they're more supportive of those right things across the organization. So that's the first thing, make it simple. This is not a litmus test about whether people are committed to what you want them to do. Folks have a million things on their plates. They're super busy and super distracted, and the more you can do to make it easy for them to be sustainable, the better. Okay, enough on my make it easy tirade. The other thing you can do is you can celebrate the people who are doing the right things. And this is really important because it's way more powerful than you realize it is. So when you call out someone for doing the right thing, two things immediately happen. First, some other people in the room, their ears perk up and they think, well, I could be doing the right thing too, or I did the right thing yesterday. I need to do it again so I get attention. So you get expansion of what's happening. But there's also a really important thing that happens with that person you called out. So when you recognize Tom for his efforts, Tom suddenly feels a spotlight on him that you've called him out as a good recycler. And now Tom has a very human reaction to that. He needs to live up to the recognition you gave him. So probably he will become a better recycler because you called him out. So you've got Tom doing more because he's self-conscious about the spotlight that appeared on him. And you've got Alice and any number of other folks wanting the spotlight on them. And then, of course, as you give more kudos, that just multiplies. And so this becomes this virtuous circle where you've got folks doing things that are consistent with what the organization's sustainability goals are because they want to be part of the solution. Part of what's really important to understand is people are really hungry to be part of these solutions inside their organizations. And you've got the opportunity to feed that hunger by recognizing folks who are doing the right thing, by making it easy for them to do the right thing, and then recognizing them and celebrating the expansion of those efforts. I mean, ultimately what you're doing there is you're letting them be the change you want to see in the world, which is a pretty exciting thing to be doing as a sustainability lead. With that, we have a tendency, we like to keep these relatively tight, topical, with some time for questions. I want to open things up for questions, and so you've got that sidebar box where you can type questions, and as you are thinking about questions, I want to throw out there another poll question for you, because I want you to think about where right now you have opportunities to engage people around your corporate sustainability goals. Where are there places where you could celebrate what people are doing, where you could help give people better signals about the things that they could do to contribute to the whole? Kind of where are those opportunities for you? We'll give folks a couple seconds to answer that. And in the meantime, you should also feel free to log in questions. Okay, got a pretty good section of folks voting there. Let me just share that. So lots of opportunity to engage folks around waste and recycling. A little bit less on than next energy use and workstations and water use are the next two big opportunities there. Less in terms of fleet and commuting practices, which might reflect kind of the audience we've got today. Okay, let me go back here to questions. Oh, this is a great question. So saying, I totally hear what you're saying about behavior, but how on earth can I find time to engage people given everything else I'm doing? And I think that's a really important point, okay? And I do not in any way kind of underestimate the pile of work that most sustainability leads have at this point inside organizations in terms of identifying technologies, getting them implemented, reporting on results, tracking all of those things. Relative to time for engagement, I want to offer you a couple of strategies that are maybe outside the box. First is that there might be opportunity here to collaborate with your HR department. So lots of organizations have one or more people in human resources who are interested in employee engagement. There may be some opportunities there to leverage some efforts that way. The other leveraging I think about is the opinion leaders within your organization. And when I talk about opinion leaders, I'm talking about people other people listen to in the lunchroom. So these are the folks who help shape culture in your organization. And I think particularly around the celebrating sustainable practices, there's an opportunity in every organization to enlist opinion leaders in helping to identify and celebrate those things. So you could reach out to one or more people and say, hey, I know that you are that people pay attention to you. I'd really like your help on this. I'm trying to recognize people who are doing a good job recycling in the office, and maybe you can help me by, just keeping an eye out for who's doing a great job, and let's coordinate on how we can recognize them. And sort of spreading that responsibility. I mean, the reality is you've got probably in your organization, everyone in the organization is walking around with a cell phone with a camera in their pocket. The ability of employees to capture other employees doing the right things is today unprecedented. And those photos are amazingly powerful. You could post a couple a week on an intranet page. These are the folks who are doing amazing things. So you don't, again, that doesn't have to be a big, hard problem. The third resource I think about for you is more of an external resource that there might well be some way you could partner with local university students interested in sustainability or other kind of volunteerish resources where folks might help you communicate about your successes back to folks, think about fun ways to engage people. And so partly I think here the quest is, let's not limit it to what you can do in the hours you have in a day. Let's think about who else could be part of this. Because honestly, recognizing the good stuff that's happening and celebrating it is a pretty fun thing to do. When you invite me to help you do that, I'm inclined to say yes, because it's a fun thing. And, lots of things are less fun than that, probably, in a typical work situation. That would be my kind of sense of that. See if we've got other questions here. It doesn't look like it. So with that, I like to keep these short, and we're running up on 12:30. With that, I will close. Thanks so much for attending today. You've got my email if you want to follow up. If you've got other questions, I guess I should technically switch back to that so you can see my email. You've got my email if you want to follow up on anything. We're delighted you could join us today, and thanks for all the work you do to make organizations more sustainable for all of us. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.